It's time for you all to wake up and shift your paradigm. This world is the kingdom of darkness, and we are living in its last days. It won't be long before the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. The heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat, and the earth and everything therein shall be burnt up. The Luciferian elite have been setting up the New World Order, and now they've established the globalist beast system for the rise of that wicked one and revealing of the man of sin who comes after the workings of Satan. Don't take my word for it. Read the Bible, and you'll know that perilous times shall come in the last days. And we are in the last days.
Where Satan is most at work, we'll see, is in religious deception. And so, this concept isn't new to right now, and most of them, are on the radio and television and are voluminous in their output. But false teachers have been a part of the landscape from the start. So, the most repeated description in the end of days, and this is what I want to show you, starting in verse 4. And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one," what? What does your Bible say? Deceives you. Okay, look at verse 5. "For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will," what's the word? Deceive many. There's the second time. Look down at verse 11. "And many false prophets will rise up and," there it is again, "deceive." And keep going down to verse 24. "For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to," now this one is amazing, "to deceive, if it were even possible, the elect." That means that the level of deception is going to be at such a level that if it wasn't for God's supernatural intervening work, even believers, even those who are indwelt by the Spirit of God, could be led away from the truth and into the devil's way.
The Great Invocation. Let the forces of light bring illumination to mankind. Let the spirit of peace be spread abroad. May men of goodwill everywhere meet in a spirit of cooperation. May forgiveness on the part of all men be the keynote at this time. Let power attend the efforts of the great ones. So let it be, and help us to do our part. Let the Lords of Liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming, save. Come forth, O Mighty One. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O Mighty One. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O Mighty One. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O Mighty One, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth.
Hello. In the traditional motion picture story, the villains are usually defeated. The ending is a happy one. I can make no such promise for the picture you're about to watch. The story isn't over. You and the audience are part of the conflict.
United Nations headquarters, which was built in 1945 and financed largely by John D. Rockefeller. Inside UN headquarters is an ominous meditation room. The custodian of the meditation room is Lucis Trust Company. At one time, the Lucis Trust was located at 666 United Nations Plaza and was formerly named Lucifer Publishing Company. The Rockefeller-funded UN meditation room is 33 feet long and 18 feet wide. 18 feet is 6 plus 6 plus 6. The small, dimly lit, windowless room was built in the shape of a pyramid that is laying on its side. At the center of the room is a 4-foot-high, black, casket-shaped stone slab which weighs 6.5 tons and is extremely magnetic and rests on a concrete pillar. The pillar descends beneath the floor into the bedrock and taps into the Earth's hyperdimensional energies to induce a state of altered consciousness. Not far from the meditation room is the United Nations Security Council chamber. This is the emergency room of the UN, where the world leaders meet when there is a threat to peace. They decide the fate of nations. Notice the giant mural that towers over the Security Council room. The central focus of the UN mural is the phoenix bird that has risen. The phoenix bird is a symbol of Lucifer. Egyptians believed that the phoenix symbolized a god who rose to heaven in the form of a morning star like Lucifer after his fire immolation of death and rebirth. Notice that the phoenix bird is not standing above his own ashes. He is standing above his old skin. Like a snake, he has shed his old skin and is revealing himself as God at the center of the mural. At the top left, there is a church steeple without a cross. The missing cross symbolizes the death of Christianity. Below, a woman receives the rays of the sun god, while the man in front of her plays Pan's flute. To their right are two pyramid symbols and people joined together by a long blue serpent-like cloth. Below the risen phoenix, a sword is driven through a dragon beast. This represents the killing of old beliefs and religions that depicted Lucifer as a beast. The New World religion worships him as beautiful. Behind the phoenix, the ghostly figures of the walking dead are stepping into a void. They symbolize depopulation. On the right panel, the pale horse from the book of Revelation is the bringer of death to humanity through weapons, hunger, and disease. The man is releasing him. The chained black man represents slavery, while the top panel of the mural shows a technologically advanced white race who control industry, art, and science.
The worldwide activities of the Lucis Trust, founded by Alison Foster Bailey, is dedicated to establishing human relations by promoting the education of the human mind towards recognition and practice of the spiritual principles and values upon which a stable and interdependent world society may be based. Like Alice Bailey, Sarah McKechnie is taking her professional and spiritual journey through life with her husband, Dale McKechnie, who is Vice President of the Lucis Trust. Sarah McKechnie, I can only imagine that you've been asked thousands of times to speak on the history of Lucis Trust founder Alice Bailey. But before I ask you to do this, I would like you to reach farther back into history and give us an overview of Alice Bailey's Russian mentor, Madame Helena Blavatsky, and why Bailey looked to her for inspiration.
Madame Blavatsky, as she's called, or sometimes referred to as HPB, her initials, was a real pioneer in the bringing of what's called the ageless wisdom to the West. The ageless wisdom is a term for the spiritual teaching that for most of human history was hidden or veiled, but it's like a golden thread that runs throughout the world religions and mythologies and has always been present in human consciousness in some form or another appropriate for the time. Then in about 1875, a Russian woman, Madame Blavatsky, who had traveled extensively throughout the East and studied with spiritual teachers who were in remote locations in Tibet, in Egypt, deep in South America. She traveled all over, which was extraordinary for a woman in those times, wrote a work that's called The Secret Doctrine, and it was really fundamental in bringing the ageless wisdom into Western consciousness. Alice Bailey herself discovered the secret doctrine when she was living in California. Her own personal story is very interesting. She was a divorced woman with 3 small daughters to raise, and through a series of extraordinary events, she discovered the secret doctrine and was put in touch with 2 students who had studied personally under Madame Blavatsky. And so Alice Bailey became deeply engrossed in the study of the ageless wisdom and became an expert on the secret doctrine and began to teach it herself. So yes, you're right, Blavatsky was in many ways Alice Bailey's mentor, even though they never knew each other.
Is it true that Blavatsky's writings might have been plagiarized or at the very least served to inspire the recent best-selling book, The Secret?
I don't know. I am not terribly familiar with that book. I've heard of it. I think that some of the principles in the book The Secret are fairly well-anchored ideas that are really part of the ageless wisdom and therefore part of the library that humanity has been given. I wouldn't use the word plagiarized, which suggests stolen, just rephrased for modern man.
So let me read something Blavatsky wrote. Quote, "It is Satan who is the god of our planet and the only god, and this without any elusive metaphor, to its wickedness and depravity." Do you know what this really means, and do you think Bailey was so inspired by this sentiment that she named what has now been renamed or rebranded as the Lucis Trust, the Lucifer Publishing Company, back in the 1920s?
If I understand the statement of Blavatsky about Satan, that's another term for Saturn, which is one of the planets. In the study of esoteric astrology, there are, I believe, 7 sacred planets. Saturn is the planet that is connected with the distribution or the working out of karma, the law of karma, which is really just another term for the law of cause and effect. It's utterly benign in its ultimate working out, even though karma can be painful to the individual undergoing the process. And that's why Blavatsky said Satan or Saturn is, well, how did you put it?
It is Satan who is the god of our planet and the only god, and this without any elusive metaphor to its wickedness and depravity.
Well, if I understand her language, without any elusive metaphor to its wickedness and depravity, she's saying it's not necessarily associated with wickedness and depravity as we normally think of Satan, the devil. Saturn is the planet of karma, which is the great law of equilibrium, the restoration of harmony and balance. That's another way to look at cause and effect. It's the restoration of equilibrium, which can only be good.
Okay, first of all, let's do a little study. This word, the word deceive, is a Greek word planao. Now, all of you know that. It's into the English language. It's one of those transliterated. Remember I told you that some words aren't translated. That means the foreign language word is translated into what it means in English. Some of them are just slid across, which is called transliteration, which means it sounds the same in both languages. Planetes has come into the English language. What is it? It's the word for planets. And so people would just lay there, and what they did is they watched the stars, and the stars were always the same. Now, they learned that there's constellations, and they went on this cycle, but they noticed that the stars were fixed. But then after a while, a few of them started saying, wait a minute, that star was there last night, but that star's there. Whoa. And there were stars that planaoed, that weren't fixed. They wandered. They moved without moorings. And those were called the planetes, which we know today as the planets. That these stars that didn't have a fixed position were wanderers to the ancients. So there were two kinds of stars. There were the fixed stars, and there were the wandering stars. Deception, planetes, planao, means to wander, not fixed to a point, but floating, drifting, wandering. The devil wants people to not be fixed. Now, have you ever heard people say, oh, doctrine, it's so divisive, so boring, doctrine, you know? Doctrine divides. You bet it does. It's intended that way. And what the devil wants people to do is to wander away from doctrine, the doctrine of Christ.
Now, the reference to Lucifer comes from Blavatsky's description of Lucifer in the accurate sense of the term, which is of Latin origin. It means literally light bearer, and it refers to a very obscure principle in the ageless wisdom, which is that the solar angels, the governing lords of the world, descended to our planet eons ago, bringing the principle of mind to what was then in those ancient times essentially animal man. Human beings with no mentality at all, no soul, just virtually living the existence of an animal. And these solar angels brought the principle of mind. That's the connection with Lucifer, light bearer, bringing the light of mind to our world. So Lucifer, to Blavatsky, was one of the great sacrificial beings who descended to earth. That's where we get the idea of the fall. As John Milton, I think it was the British poet John Milton, wrote about the fall of the angels. That was the descent of the solar angels to earth as an act of sacrifice on our behalf. So you can see, if you even have a willingness to consider this doctrine, how skewed it has been by the more modern connotation of evil and Satanism and corruption. It's not seen that way at all in the ageless wisdom. So Alison Foster Bailey came out of the Theosophical tradition, as I said. I believe Foster even was the editor of a Theosophical magazine that they called Lucifer. So they probably thought Lucifer, light bearer, was a good name for their fledgling publishing company when they started to publish the books that Alice Bailey was writing, the books they saw as bringing light to humanity. But within 2 or 3 years, they decided to change the name of the company to Lucis Publishing Company. Lucis being from the same Latin term meaning of light, trust of light, publishing company of light, and that's the name we've had since about 1925.
Are there any other characters that are just as wise and illuminating as Lucifer? Perhaps is there a feminine spirit that the Lucius trust? speaks about?
Well, the feminine principle is embodied in people like Eve, Isis, and Mary. Mary being the mother of Jesus, Eve being the biblical wife of Adam, Isis being one of the rulers from Egyptian mythology. Generally, the feminine principle in the Ageless Wisdom is equated with matter, and matter, according to Blavatsky, is spirit on its lowest level, and spirit is matter on its highest level, and the two are one. It's not correct to see matter as contaminated and evil, and spirit as the only good. The whole objective, especially in the coming age, is to see the mergence of spirit and matter in perfect union, so that life on earth becomes an accurate expression of God's plan as it exists in the mind of God. To bring through that plan on earth is to merge spirit with matter. The feminine principle is the receptive principle, the masculine principle being the spirit or active agent, but nothing is accomplished without the feminine principle carrying it through and bringing it to birth.
Lucis Trust is a non-governmental organization that has an affiliation with the UN. How does your esoteric practice interface with the figures and policies of world government? It's a bit of a reaching question, but I thought I'd give it a shot.
That's all right. In some circles who don't know very much about our work, they have accused us of being in favor of a one-world government. That's not the case at all. We don't believe for a minute that there's any one system of government that would suit the whole world. Cultures and societies are different, and it's the right of nations to choose their own form of government. The term one world government is much more subjective in its significance in the books of Alice Bailey. It doesn't mean a political system that nations would follow, but rather a kind of a spiritual view or perspective that sees the coalescing of all the nations of the world in unity. And that's what the United Nations stands for.
But is it not so that Lucis Trust, Alice Bailey, was looking for specifically the prophet Maitreya?
The Maitreya is a being, an entity that is expected by the Buddhists. It's the reincarnation of the Buddha as the world teacher, the final Buddha, he whose name is kindness, we're told. And he's expected as an avatar to lead humanity forward into the next stage of human evolution. The Ageless Wisdom views the Maitreya as the Buddhist understanding of the same concept that the Christian views as Christ, that the Hindu understands as the Kalki avatar, the Jewish person looks for the Messiah. It's the world teacher, and the writings of Alice Bailey say this entity will come, this time for the whole of humanity.
So you notice, Jesus was asked about the end of days, and what is his very first description of that future apocalyptic end time? Look what it says in your Bible. Jesus answered and said to them, signs of the times, prophecy, the end. He didn't pull out a chart. He said, take heed that no one planetes you. Make sure that you get fastened to truth. And the Lord says, don't let anybody pseudo-Christ. Don't let them make a false representation of Christ or false prophets, pseudo-prophets. These are going to rise and show great, what did Jesus say? Signs and wonders. Did you know miracle working is not a proof of God? Doctrine is. Oh, isn't it amazing that the greatest time of deception at the end of days is going to be accompanied with people who can do signs and wondrous miracles? Wow.
Signs and wonders. So in there were some excerpts from a sermon that was recently sent to me by a pastor from Calvary Chapel. The link will be in the description. A lot of interesting segments in there overall. Those were just a few, but I mixed them in because it kind of relates to what I've been looking into over the past few weeks. in sort of an unexpected way. And just as a side note, I'm not endorsing everything the guy says or Calvary Chapel or anything like that, even within this own sermon, but overall, the underlying points that he was making was pretty good. And I also threw in those bits about planetes being the Greek word used interchangeably with deceived, which I, of course, thought was pretty interesting in light of biblical cosmology and all those questions relating to the planets, and are they part of the original creation or part of some sort of angelic rebellion? And examples like these do seem to kind of point to that conclusion, although it's still hard to say for sure. But his underlying point was really dead on in terms of spiritual deception being the number one hallmark of the last days. So I totally say amen on that point. He does later on get into, which I do disagree with, and he even reads through 2 Thessalonians 2 and reads right through the section where it says that the coming of Jesus will not happen and our gathering to him until the man of sin is revealed. Reads right through that and then goes on to talk about how the restrainer is the Holy Spirit and who will be raptured away. But then also talks about there being believers during the Antichrist reign and persecution and all that. So it's that same whole self-contradictory pre-trib thing. So that was probably the most difficult section to listen to, but overall it doesn't negate the fact that so much of what else he's saying is pretty right on nonetheless. And that's kind of the thing lately, when you're listening to sermons from, I guess, what we might call blue pill pastors. They're definitely not talking about like the New World Order and conspiracy or questioning the moon landings or anything like that. They're still very, mainstream in their thinking in a number of ways, but that doesn't mean that everything that is being said actually doesn't have a lot of edifying value. So you kind of take it for what it is. But that itself is sort of an interesting point because of the overall matter of how much spiritual deception is going unnoticed because it's not being perceived as spiritual teachings. And that, of course, goes back into this topic that I have been getting into more and more, and that is the role of physics, not just science, specifically astrophysics or relativity or quantum physics. And in the course of that study and trying to kind of trace back the whole progression and really seriously pursue this question of whether there might be spiritual deception at the core of all these quantum and Einsteinian theories, one of the things you keep coming back to is the history of Theosophy and Madame Blavatsky and this book, The Secret Doctrine, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and those opening 20 minutes were probably review for a lot of you, but I still kind of wanted to set the context and the stage, especially for those people who are just now learning about these things and how, yes, they actually do have tangible connections to the UN and to the formation of a one-world system, even though just like how the current head of the Lucis Trust, or she was at the time of the interview, I believe, she says that it's not necessarily about even implementing a one-world government system, like one form of government that carries across all the borders, but a one-world spirituality. And that, I think, is very, very key. And again, when we look at the whole idea of science and scientific knowledge and technology, the internet and things like physics, and those are the things that already transcend national boundaries, that transcend religious boundaries, that transcend cultural boundaries. People believe that science is universal, so it becomes this universal approach to seeking truth that everyone sort of shares. But okay, so what does this have to do with Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and The Secret Doctrine and Theosophy and Lucis Trust? Well, the thing I've been looking into with a fair amount of trepidation, I will admit, is this claim that Madame Blavatsky, in her book The Secret Doctrine, published in 1888, actually proposed the theories of both relativity and quantum physics, namely things like wave-particle duality, in that book. And it's interesting when you stop and remember that the subtitle of The Secret Doctrine is The Synthesis of Science, Religion, and Philosophy. And it's pretty crazy that like a third of that book is basically devoted to talking about science and physics, and talking about particle theory and versus wave theory and undulations. And to make a long story short, I was considering reading a few excerpts to kind of show. I don't think I'm going to do that, but I will leave links in the description for people who want to look further. But again, I even talk about this with a fair amount of hesitancy because this is just some dark territory that this is getting into. And I personally don't feel comfortable reading occult texts, especially for any extended period of time. And you have to make sure you're balancing it out by reading the word and not getting engrossed in this kind of material. But from what I've seen, I would have to say that, yeah, I personally find it pretty convincing that she was talking about both of these concepts in the Secret Doctrine. Obviously, the language and the wording is different in certain ways, but when you really get down to like what she's describing, I don't know how else to come away with anything different. And what's pretty crazy is that when we think back to the history of supposedly how quantum physics and relativity came about, remember that, relativity, where matter and energy are interchangeable, was Einstein's thing, but he in turn was appalled at a lot of the conclusions put forth by Niels Bohr and the Copenhagen school and all that. So there was this whole rift that supposedly existed from the very beginning as these things were sort of naturally being discovered through objective science, supposedly. So there are claims, and these are just claims that we can't really verify one way or the other, but that Einstein had a copy of the Secret Doctrine. I think it was his nephew or something who did claim this. And again, I'll leave links to this below. It has been put out there primarily by people associated with the Theosophical Society, which is not surprising because they want to claim it as their own, prophetic sort of knowledge, right? And then on the other side, the people who are the proponents of just sort of mainstream materialistic science and physics, they poo-poo this idea completely, not surprisingly again. But nonetheless, when you really step back and then look at our modern day and age, where we've seen how many examples of where quantum physics and the alleged implications of quantum physics, and now we're on the precipice of quantum computing, supposedly, so it's all been validated, even though it's still never been resolved. Here we are where these things actually are pulling scores and scores of people into the exact same monistic, pantheistic, metaphysical spirituality that Blavatsky definitely preaches in the Secret Doctrine. So call it coincidence, call it a stretch, but I don't think so. And so when we talk about the Antichrist and the beast system and the deception in the last days that is spiritual deception, and that this Antichrist figure will have powers to do signs and wonders that will just amaze the world and deceive the whole world into following him, and the Lucis Trust is like their whole mission. That's what the Great Invocation is bringing this great work about. Ushering in the Antichrist. Ushering in Lucifer the Light-Bearer, who they believe will then elevate humanity to their next evolutionary stage. But from the very beginning of that whole agenda has been the synthesizing of science, religion, and philosophy. So religious false teaching, spiritual false teaching, is not relegated to the arenas where it is just simply calling itself spirituality. Evolution itself is a spiritual agenda and a spiritual doctrine. But it's not the only one. It's not the only Luciferian belief that comes under the guise of science. That's, I think, what is becoming more and more apparent. And when you talk about a being that comes onto the world stage and does magic, basically, has superhuman, whether it's psychic powers or whatever, when you look at all this quantum mysticism that is now just infiltrating slowly but surely into the mainstream, it is not difficult to imagine the world looking to a figure who is supposedly that reincarnation of the Christ consciousness, the final Buddha, the Maitreya avatar, whatever people want to call him, doing amazing things, still being able to interpret it and buy into it even through a scientific lens, through the lens of quantum consciousness, the Christ consciousness, quote unquote, where matter and energy are interchangeable and everything is ultimately made of consciousness at its most fundamental level. And so this figure will undoubtedly be heralded as the first person to master that, to make that breakthrough. And he will be perceived to be the one who will then unlock those powers for everyone else to join him in the apotheosis. in that next quantum leap of evolution. So sorry it was kind of a long one today, but there's going to be a bunch of links in the description, so check that out. And thank you for your time. God bless.
Hello. In the traditional motion picture story, the villains are usually defeated. The ending is a happy one. I can make no such promise for the picture you're about to watch. The story isn't over. You and the audience are part of the conflict.
United Nations headquarters, which was built in 1945 and financed largely by John D. Rockefeller. Inside UN headquarters is an ominous meditation room. The custodian of the meditation room is Lucis Trust Company. At one time, the Lucis Trust was located at 666 United Nations Plaza and was formerly named Lucifer Publishing Company. The Rockefeller-funded UN meditation room is 33 feet long and 18 feet wide. 18 feet is 6 plus 6 plus 6. The small, dimly lit, windowless room was built in the shape of a pyramid that is laying on its side. At the center of the room is a 4-foot-high, black, casket-shaped stone slab which weighs 6.5 tons and is extremely magnetic and rests on a concrete pillar. The pillar descends beneath the floor into the bedrock and taps into the Earth's hyperdimensional energies to induce a state of altered consciousness. Not far from the meditation room is the United Nations Security Council chamber. This is the emergency room of the UN, where the world leaders meet when there is a threat to peace. They decide the fate of nations. Notice the giant mural that towers over the Security Council room. The central focus of the UN mural is the phoenix bird that has risen. The phoenix bird is a symbol of Lucifer. Egyptians believed that the phoenix symbolized a god who rose to heaven in the form of a morning star like Lucifer after his fire immolation of death and rebirth. Notice that the phoenix bird is not standing above his own ashes. He is standing above his old skin. Like a snake, he has shed his old skin and is revealing himself as God at the center of the mural. At the top left, there is a church steeple without a cross. The missing cross symbolizes the death of Christianity. Below, a woman receives the rays of the sun god, while the man in front of her plays Pan's flute. To their right are two pyramid symbols and people joined together by a long blue serpent-like cloth. Below the risen phoenix, a sword is driven through a dragon beast. This represents the killing of old beliefs and religions that depicted Lucifer as a beast. The New World religion worships him as beautiful. Behind the phoenix, the ghostly figures of the walking dead are stepping into a void. They symbolize depopulation. On the right panel, the pale horse from the book of Revelation is the bringer of death to humanity through weapons, hunger, and disease. The man is releasing him. The chained black man represents slavery, while the top panel of the mural shows a technologically advanced white race who control industry, art, and science. In this post-apocalyptic mural, the military man standing on the tail of the beast represents worldwide military power. He tips his helmet to the elite, who are climbing out from underground cities where they safely hid from the apocalypse. In the main oval panel above the phoenix bird, a woman is holding flowers. She is the bride in a wedding ceremony. Could the newlyweds symbolize William and Kate? The serpent in human form is tempting the little girl Eve, who accepts the apple. On the right side of the top panel, a reptilian green creature with scaly skin is dancing with a naked woman while musicians entertain him. The general message of the UN's Phoenix Rising mural is that humanity is stepping into a new luciferic reality. Beneath this disturbingly prophetic mural, world leaders make global decisions that affect the lives of nearly 7 billion people.
Guido von List believed in renouncing Christianity and returning to the pagan religions of the ancient Europeans. And Hitler himself is quoted as saying, "The old beliefs will be brought back again. The whole secret knowledge of nature, of the divine, of the demonic. We will wash off the Christian veneer and bring out a religion peculiar to our race." As he said in his own words, the destruction of Christianity. This was the same aim of Madame Blavatsky and her Theosophical Society. And it was also the same aim of Madame Blavatsky's occult successor, Alice A. Bailey, the founder of Lucis Trust, an occult organization that currently has its headquarters within the United Nations. The objectives of this organization, Lucis Trust, have been codified and embodied in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights and in the United Nations Charter. Alice A. Bailey, the founder of the occult organization Lucis Trust, developed 10 strategies to establish a new world order. These strategies are, number 1, push God out of the schools. If the people grow up without reference to God, then they will consider God irrelevant to day-to-day life.
They know that they have to go after the very things that the Judeo-Christian tradition honors and values. Morality, belief in God, faith, the importance of family, the sanctity of life, the sanctity of marriage.
Number 2, break the traditional Judeo-Christian family concept. Break communication between parents and children so that parents can't pass on spiritual values to their children. Do this by pushing excessive child rights.
They are extremely anti-parent. It is an effort to get the children to abandon the values of their parents.
Through the propaganda they teach them, 7 hours a day for 13 years, and even longer if they attend college. We are losing most of our children to the other side because of the anti-American, anti-God, and anti-free enterprise rhetoric they are filled with in the government schools.
Number 3, remove restrictions on sex. Sex is the biggest joy, and Christianity robs people of this. People must be freed to enjoy it without restrictions.
But their game right now is to corrupt the 15 to 25-year-olds or less. And right now they're down in the first grade with Heather Has Two Mommies, Daddy's Roommate, Gay Pride Parade, and now by 8th grade they'll pass out condoms in school colors because that's so patriotic.
Number 4, since sex is the greatest expression of man's enjoyment of life, man must be free to express sex in all its forms. Homosexuality, orgies, even bestiality are desirable so long as no one is being abused or harmed.
We also see immorality being promoted through our schools. The kind of sex ed curriculum that is being used and paid for with our tax dollars would shock most parents.
Number 5, people must be free to abort unwanted children. If a man can have sex and then live without the consequences, then the same should be true for a woman too.
They are for the entire feminist agenda, starting with abortion on demand, tax-funded abortions.
Number 6, every person develops soul bonds. So when a soul bond wears out, a person must be free to divorce. When one starts to grow, one must be free to get together with that person, even if they are married.
Their entire purpose was to detach our culture from any moral anchors whatsoever.
Number 7, diffuse religious radicalism. Christianity says Jesus is the only way. Diffuse this by A, silencing Christianity, and B, promoting other faiths, the creation of interfaith harmony.
At its core, it's a rebellion against God and God's laws.
And that's what the battle is about. That's what the assault is on. That's why Christianity is a target.
Number 8, use the media to influence mass opinion. Create mass opinion that is receptive to these values by using TV, film, the press, etc. Note well, what Western believers call normal in the African church would be pornography.
They look at what holds society together, they understand it, but they don't want that. They want change, and they will subvert and rot every good and decent thing we believe in.
Number 9, debase art in all its forms, corrupt music, painting, poetry, and every expression of the heart, and make it obscene, immoral, and occultic. Debase the arts in every way possible.
They've done everything in their power to dumb down our children, undermine our families, rewrite our history, and promote obscenity and immorality everywhere that they can.
And number 10, get the church to endorse every one of these 9 strategies. Get the church to accept these principles and to say they're okay. Then legal ground is given for these values to get a foothold.
It wasn't until I was watching an old film from World War II that I realized what the left has been doing in America to pit the poor against the rich, blacks against whites, and the young against the old is the same tactic Hitler used to disunify Germany.
You see, they knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk. Somebody is going to get something out of it, and it isn't going to be you.
The New World Order wants to create a world currency, a world government, a world army, a world religion. And it's not of Christ, of Buddha, it's not of the Muslim faith, it is a satanic order.
Our institutions of freedom have lain dormant. The United Nations can offer them new life. These institutions play a crucial role in our quest for a new world order.
Their agenda is control. Control of our currency, control of our families, of our freedoms, of our religions. They want it all. There's nothing that you have, or ever had, or ever hope to have that they're not planning to taking away. They want it all. If you take a look at the backside of the dollar bill, it'll say Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new social order. And they have the pyramid. And that has nothing, not a damn thing to do with the United States of America. I was going to take a look at, a bill. And you can take a look on the backside of the bill and it'll say, here. You can hardly see it. But it's Novus Ordo Seclorum, the New World Order. It's what Hitler envisioned. It's on the backside of the United States dollar bill. The eye of the pyramid, which is also called the eye of Horus, is the eye of Lucifer. This is what we are facing.
Just to give you an idea of how black is white and topsy is turvy in relation to our perception of what's going on compared with what is. In New York Harbor is a lady holding a lighted torch, a Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty, land of the free. That's what most Americans, 99.9% of them, believe that stands for. In fact, that was given to New York Harbor by French Freemasons who knew that it was an Illuminati symbolism of, we control the show, we're telling you, but because you don't know the secret language and we've given you another version of it, freedom, you don't know what's going on.
The New World Order is housed right here at the United Nations. It is global government. Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. One world, one race, one ruler. It's what Rudolf Hess talked about when he introduced Adolf Hitler. This is Hitler's dream come true. This is a nightmare. This is the tombstone upon all sovereignty for all nations for all time. The United Nations must fall for freedom to live.
Where institutions of freedom have lain dormant, the United Nations can offer them new life. These institutions play a crucial role in our quest for a new world order. An order in which no nation must surrender one iota of its own sovereignty, an order characterized by the rule of law rather than the resort to force.
World War I, World War II were both created to bring about the United Nations. They're in the war business. Wars, like bridges, are engineered. This New World Order is in the war business. And to create the war, they can then say that they want peace. They couldn't, this would never have been built without the aid of World War I, without the aid of World War II.
Well, thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. I'm going to be working through a website which is entitled Illuminatium. It says that this is one of the official websites of the Illuminati, and it encourages people to discover the Illuminatium. It says, the Illuminati is an elite collective of leaders, business authorities, and other influential members of this planet. Illuminatium encompasses all official public operations of the Illuminati through various programs that support the outreach and education of citizens. Followers of Illuminatium represent a unity of citizens dedicated to the Illuminati's beliefs and to the preservation of the human species. We are then given two options on this website. One is to read more about your life's purpose, as they put it, which is read the First Testament. The other link is to learn more about our organization, which is visiting the other official website. Now, further down the site, it portrays what they claim are millions who are already seeking the light. It says, millions of people from all walks of life have committed themselves to the Illuminati's global work for the betterment of the human species. By foregoing all divisions of religious, geographical, or political beliefs, followers of Illuminatium strive to form a planet where all people in all places can live in abundance. There is then a link which is entitled Begin Your Life's Journey, and it says, we invite you to discover more about our organization and to understand your role in our universal design. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this morning I'm going to be speaking about what I believe to be a very important subject. It's about the Illuminati. Now, many people will look at this and say, well, you know, this is just a spoof. It's nothing to be taken seriously. I want to assure you that based on my research and the research of many other people, this is a subject to be taken extremely seriously. And I want to ask you to pay attention and to just work through this website with me. Now, on the home page of the website, it says, welcome to the official Illuminati website. Learn more about our operations and beliefs. And I won't read the first paragraph because we're going to read it later on. But the second paragraph says, while our operations require anonymity for the safety of our members, we strive to create a better understanding between us and the people we have been entrusted to protect. I'll come back to this video in a minute. Now, further down the page, it says, what is the Illuminati? The Illuminati is both plural and singular. All are one, we are all. The Illuminati is an elite collective of political leaders, business owners, entertainment celebrities, and other influential members of this planet. By uniting influences of the world in an unrestricted private domain, free of political, religious, and geological boundaries, our organization helps us to further the prosperity of the human species as a whole. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to reveal a lie right at the outset. If we pay close attention to the media, to television, the music industry, and specifically Hollywood, we'll find that the Illuminati agenda is not free of political, religious, and geological boundaries. It certainly is not free of religion, because luciferianism, or the worship of Satan, is promoted at every level in the media. I'm going to continue. Managing the lives of over 7 billion humans is a daunting task. Our duty to this planet has spanned across centuries and survived even the most established government entities. To continue functioning throughout societal and generational changes, the Illuminati's operations often require anonymity for both our members and our work. In 2013, the Illuminati authorized the formation of the Department of Citizen Outreach. Through various initiatives and campaigns, including this website, the Illuminati has committed itself to furthering our relationship with our citizens. You will not find us praised in any history book or document. However, members of the Illuminati have helped shape every major movement on this planet since the first human government was established. Our work is often marked by distinct symbols as means of tracing our influence throughout history for those wishing to investigate. With gentle and unknown guidance from our organization, the human species is allowed to function in their natural order while playing the part of gears in a machine for the betterment of the world. Why this website was created, a message from our Vice President. Since the formation of the Illuminati, many citizens have inaccurately portrayed our organization in a negative manner. These misconceptions have been perpetuated for centuries through videos, photos, articles, books, and unofficial online resources claiming to understand our mission and members. In creating this online destination, we strive to alleviate the concerns voiced by the people of this planet and seek to provide insight into our goals. We invite you, the citizens of the human species, to discover more about our organization and to understand your role in this planetary union. And it is signed by Thaddeus I. Am, Vice President of Citizen Outreach, the Illuminati organization. Now, once again, I want to just make a point that for good reason the Illuminati has been portrayed in a bad light throughout history. The Illuminati was formed to apparently address the woes of society. It was formed by Adam Weishaupt, who gathered together what he deemed to be some of the most intelligent people in society, and his logic was that if we just get enough people together who are extremely clever, then of course we can solve every problem in the world today. But I want to just say this at the outset, that it should become clear that when we, for example, read the Bible and we understand the nature of man, we then understand the nature of the world, that, the heart of man is desperately wicked. How is it possible then for human beings to come up with solutions to the world's problems when all of humanity is corrupt spiritually? It should be self-evident that if we look at what's happening in the world today, that there is much evil in the world. And although we claim that things are getting better, that the world is improving, and that we are moving into an age of peace and prosperity, I think the opposite is almost true. I think that as we look at what is happening in the world today, it's an illusion. We are moving into an era of what I call the New World Disorder. Certainly not the New World Order. According to the Bible, we are not going to be moving into New World Order. We are going to be moving into New World Disorder and chaos as the world has never ever seen before. Now, before you say, well, you are very negative and this is all very bad news and so on, Well, in order to understand the good news, we have to understand the bad news. Yes, the world is going to be plunged into chaos and disorder as the world has never experienced before in its history, according to Scripture. But there is very good news attached to this, which I will plug into this at the end of this presentation. So let's now have a look at the Illuminati TV commercial.
Fear not, for your war-stricken, poverty-ridden planet. You are safe. Your prosperity is the core objective of our universal design. The path for humanity has spanned throughout ages to ensure the survival and prosperity of the human species. War is a liar who claims there isn't enough land, isn't enough wealth, isn't enough food for all people in all places to live in abundance. A different age is upon us. Fear not for the bursting sounds that echo across your red horizons. Prepare your life for the light that grows steadily brighter in the distance. As the dawn comes to rid your battlefields of darkness, the age of Illuminatium will begin. Fear nothing. We are always watching out for you. To find out more about our organization and your part in the universal design, visit Illuminati.am.
I'm now going to move on to a page which is entitled Our Beliefs, and it is portrayed here as a tenet of freedom and belief. The Illuminati has no belief but the sovereignty of the human species. So man, according to them, is sovereign. The Illuminati is not a church, religion, political group or charity organization, but an elite collective of global influencers who work to further the interests of the human species as a whole. Our decisions are independent of all human divisions, including religious and political differences. We operate solely for the benefit of the human species we have been entrusted to protect, and therefore make no demands of our citizens regarding personal worship, morality, or belief. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to expose another lie here, because I've just done a video which is 2 hours 20 minutes long, which talks about the occult agenda behind the world peace movement. Believe me when I tell you that these New World Order globalists and decision makers are not independent in their decision making. They claim to actually communicate with spirit beings called ascended masters, who are giving them guidance to the problems of society and helping them form their satanic New World Order. We'll get to that later, and I'm going to give you a link to my video where you can go and get all the information you need to prove that what I'm saying is true. I'm going to move on. The preservation of the human species supersedes all. Citizens loyal to the ideals of the Illuminati and who seek membership in our organization are often referred to as followers of Illuminatium. They are free to choose any life path they desire and follow any morals they wish, providing their beliefs are always in the interests of the human species as a whole. Followers of Illuminatium forego religious, geographical, and generational differences to work as one unit with many distinct parts, accepting that each part must be unique to function properly. So here is an admission that anyone who, for example, claims to be a Christian cannot be part of the Illuminati, because that person would have to forego their religious beliefs. And they claim that people who are part of the Illuminati can follow any life path they choose or desire, and any morals they wish. Now, again, I want to point out that if humanity is left to conclude what is right, ultimately, in terms of its morality, I would like to know who is going to make the decision of what is right and wrong. Have you ever tried just to get a few people in a room to agree on even small things? It becomes very, very difficult to even get people to agree on little things, let alone global initiatives and global dilemmas and problems that need to be solved. Now, surely it should be evident that morality is not determined by humans, but moral laws have to be determined by somebody that is outside of humanity. Otherwise, it becomes impossible to define a morality for humanity. And you're going to see that this is an anti-Christ system. It hates God, it hates Christianity, and it actually upholds the worship of Lucifer and teaches that Lucifer is God. What you're looking at here on this website, for example, the triangle with the eye at the top, the third eye, the all-seeing eye, is in fact Lucifer. And this represents enlightenment, becoming enlightened through Lucifer, the light bearer. You'll notice around the eye like the rays of the sun. So this is about becoming enlightened through Luciferian secret knowledge. This is the same lie that was presented to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, that if they would just disobey God, they would be privy to secret information. The secret that was given to them was that you are actually a god. You are God and you just don't know it. Now on this website we'll see the concept of I am incorporated throughout the website, which is also part of the New Age religion. I am. This is a terminology that is attributed to God. That is a present continuous tense, where in the Bible it says, I am God. Now, New Agers, for example, teach this concept of I am. We are gods. We, as the created beings, they claim, are in fact gods. This is the same Luciferian lie. The same satanic lie, as I said, presented to Adam and Eve. So this person signs the statement, Thaddeus, I am, Vice President of Citizen Outreach. Now you have a page entitled God and Satan. It says, faith is the belief in something that cannot be proven. Most religious belief is based upon information received from an outside source that cannot be verified, sometimes known as hearsay. Millions will follow the commandments of a religious text without ever having spoken to its author, and billions will believe in a deity because of miracles they were told of by someone who wasn't even present nor alive at the time. But denouncing faith is true folly. Faith is not limited to religious believers. While even the most devout pontiff cannot provide irrefutable evidence of his God's existence, neither can the scientist who claims that no deity resides in the universe. Both rely upon their own faith to explain things they will never understand. There is no proof of God. There is no proof of no God either. Now, I'm going to make a comment to counteract that statement that there is no proof of God. I'm going to read from Romans 1, verse 18. It says, "But God shows his anger from heaven against all sinful, evil men who push away the truth from them. For the truth about God is known to them instinctively. God has put this knowledge in their hearts. Since earliest times, men have seen the earth and sky and all God made, and have known of his existence and great eternal power, so they will have no excuse when they stand before God at Judgment Day. Yes, they knew about him all right, but they wouldn't admit it or worship him or even thank him for his daily care. And after a while, they began to think up silly ideas of what God was like and what he wanted them to do. The result was that their foolish minds became dark and confused. Claiming themselves to be wise without God, they became utter fools instead. And then, instead of worshipping the glorious, ever-living God, they took wood and stone and made idols for themselves, carving them to look like mere birds and animals and snakes and puny men." In this website, we see again an example of how men elevate themselves above God, claiming that they have the answers to all the problems of the world. And the minute we resort to our own wisdom or intellectual ability or political power, when we decide to reject what is self-evident that somebody created everything that we see around us. The creation around us is evidence that God created all things. We see intelligent design all around us. And so, according to Romans 1, man will have no excuse when we stand before God one day, because the evidence of God has been made plain for all to see. I'll continue in the website. It says the deepest doubts build the strongest faith. The Illuminati's religious foundation is based upon this universal conundrum of faith and doubt. We do not question whether a God does or does not exist, but rather focus on the betterment of the human people living on this planet. Our decisions are made by the study of data and evidence, factors that can be easily altered by an omniscient creature in order to guide our actions and the future of mankind. Be wary of those who use our name. For decades, a multitude of individuals have operated under the name of the Illuminati. Their deceit clouds public perception of our organization, causing many citizens to believe that wrongdoings are committed by our command. For anyone to claim that the Illuminati is affiliated with a religious belief, be it God or Satan, Baphomet or Baal, undermines the very purpose of our independence from human divisions. We neither accept nor deny any deity and hold none to be higher than any other. We operate solely for the benefit of the human species we have been entrusted to protect. Even more heinous rumors have been attributed to our organization, including human sacrifices and violent rituals. While our individual members are allowed to serve any deity they choose, the Illuminati as a whole is only dedicated to the preservation of the human species. Therefore, human sacrifices or any practice that does not serve the betterment of mankind would counter everything we represent and are thus prohibited. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the perverse logic in this statement. They claim that individual members are allowed to serve any deity they choose. Now, we know, for example, that in Satanism, human sacrifice takes place. We know too, for example, that global leaders have no difficulty in sacrificing millions of people in the name of war to so-called better their society and get what they want. And if they can't get it through negotiation, they'll take it through warfare. You know, it's easy to prove this because we just have to go back in history. The Second World War, for example, resulted in the death of 15 million people. We have many world dictators who have murdered monstrous amounts of people in the name of a cause. It's interesting that all those world dictators were anti-Christ. They were completely anti the God of the Bible. And of course, they were just agents of evil. The last paragraph on this page says, "Must a God exist for you to do what is right? Would an all-intelligent, all-knowing, all-powerful God have any care for the name used in his worship? Would a God command the harm of another when his justice can be served without your aid? Simply do what is right and good for the benefit of your species, and whatever higher power exists will reward you for your stewardship." So very clever, because it's saying, you know what, you don't need to uphold the cause of your religion or defend your God that you allegedly worship. If this God truly exists, well, he can take care of himself. He's big enough to worry about himself and take care of the things that he's concerned about, but he doesn't need you to help him do it. Very, very clever. Here we're going to have a look at their symbols. Ha! The mark of the Illuminati. Wow. Okay, our symbols permeate human society as subtle directions to the truth. Many citizens have noticed our symbology in artwork, architecture, and visual media. Such displays of loyalty are highly appreciated. However, our symbols are not placed in your world for our own glorification, but instead serve as gentle instructions for those who look up from the rocks of earth and choose to follow the light. Perhaps it is one of these directions that brought you here, or maybe 100 of them scattered throughout your streets and buildings and glowing screens since your childhood. An invisible chain reaction of events in your life, paired with similar events in the lives of those around you have all fallen in perfect place, like the toppling of countless lines of dominoes that meet in the center. While you pushed the dominoes, it was us who laid them in a line. Now, here they have a book called The Mark of the Illuminati. Discover the meaning behind each part of the Illuminati's symbol. The pyramid. Life's journey begins at the bottom, where many reside, but few rise above. All levels are important. Without a foundation, the structure could not exist. As a person climbs the Great Pyramid, it becomes clear that they have always been one part of our universe's most intricate mechanism. The eye. The eye resides at the center of the light. Its focus so fixed upon truth that it becomes a beacon for the glow. Those who follow the light are central to this planet's universal design. Ever watchful and ever vigilant, the eye sees and knows all, just as a shepherd sees and knows all of the flock. The light. The world is covered in a darkness of confusion, war, and hardship. The light is an ever-present guidance, an unseen and unnamed higher power that compels those who follow it to strive for the betterment of the human species and rewards those who do. All who seek its glow act as mirrors, reflecting the light into the world's still darkened spaces. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here is more deception. Because I can tell you for a fact, again, I can prove this quite easily, that, for example, in Freemasonry, which is an integral part of the New World Order, Lucifer is upheld as the true God and as the light bearer who brings illumination to humanity through secret occult knowledge. The eternal. The Illuminati's duty to this planet has spanned across centuries and survived even the most established government entities. Though not praised in any history book, we have shaped every major movement on this planet and guided the human species through every threat of extinction. Though our human members may perish and fade into the annals of time, the Illuminati will continue to stand into eternity. Well, clearly, these people are deifying man above God and saying that man is going to be on this earth for all eternity. Well, that's simply not true. According to the Bible, we are going to come to the end of an age, the end of this era, where the kingdom of God is going to be established for eternity. Then there's a section on how you can join the Illuminati and get onto the official member list. There are some tools on the website. There's a printable flyer which can be used to brainwash people around you. Oh, wow. Fear not, for your war-stricken, poverty-ridden planet. Help is on the way. This planet is meant for greatness, a world rich enough for all people in all places to live in abundance. Though you may feel insignificant, you are an integral part of its future. To discover your part in our universal design, visit illuminati.im. Okay, we're going to now work through this document called Illuminatium, the First Testament of the Illuminati. But just a few things that I notice. When you study the concept of occultism and luciferianism, which is the worship of Lucifer as God, where Lucifer or Satan is the light bearer who brings illumination through secret knowledge, and that one of those teachings is that we can become gods through this so-called illumination and secret spiritual knowledge. We find here a kind of a hybrid context, which is illumination and the word testament. Now, when we look at the Bible, we have the Old Testament and we have the New Testament. These are actually contracts. They are agreements, the old agreement and the new agreement according to the Bible, the old contract and the new contract. Now, this is therefore a contractual document. I can see this as Satan's testament and his agreement with humanity. So I want you to read this document in that context so that we can understand that what's being put forward here is a covenant in a sense. You know, in the Bible, God's people were invited to walk in covenant relationship. So we have the Old Covenant, the Old Testament. Then we have the New Covenant, which replaces the Old Covenant, the New Testament, where we are invited to receive Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior and to walk in covenant relationship with Him. And the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they are in agreement? Now, in order for people to come into the New World Order and into this Luciferian covenant, they're going to have to agree with Satan. That's basically how this works. This is about coming into agreement with Lucifer, who is setting himself up as the prince of this world, which the Bible says he temporarily is. So let's get going. It shows people here who supposedly are part of the millions who have discovered the light. So we can call them Luciferians. They may not know it, they may not understand that they're worshipping Lucifer. But having said that, when we look at the media, for example, there are many people in the media industry now that are admitting that they are being expected, in Hollywood, for example, to enter into pacts with the devil. They are signing away their souls to Satan. We see, for example, many rituals today in media, like the Super Bowl, for example, in America, where satanic rituals are taking place on stage. But satanic rituals are taking place also in the music industry and in media, in movies. The occult has just come right into our lounge, into mainstream media, and unashamedly now the world is being indoctrinated into this Luciferian New World Order, New Age. So let's begin. The contents covered are the Age of Illuminatium, or more correctly, the New Age, or the Age of Illumination, as they probably should call it. The White Room, methods of mind control, how you are watched, the need for hardships, the secret of power, the future of this planet, the God conundrum, how to join the Illuminati, a beacon for the light, and finding purpose. The Age of Illuminatium. Welcome. The Illuminati holds you, a citizen of our shared planet, in the highest esteem. You may not realize it yet, but you have been led here by design, even though you arrived by your own free will. You were not shown a symbol in the sky, nor did you hear a magnified voice that caused the ground beneath you to tremble, demanding you read the words written in this testament. You followed your own life's journey to find your way here, never suspecting that the map you relied upon was drawn by us. The Illuminati is an elite collective of political leaders, business owners, and other influential members of this planet. Our organization unites leaders of the world in an unrestricted and private domain, free of political, religious, and geographical boundaries, to further the prosperity of the human species. To operate in humanity's best interest, our council's authority supersedes that of individual governments, making decisions that your queens, presidents, emperors, and other leaders may be unable to decree on their own, but are required to carry out. You will not find us praised in any history book or document, though the Illuminati has helped shape every major movement on this planet since the first human government was established. The Illuminati's purpose is to secure the ongoing survival of the human species. Like all organisms, the human species naturally strives against extinction. Though your countries and borders and your languages have barriers, all people in all places are members of the same biological family. All humans are pieces of a collective that keep humanity in existence. Interestingly enough, they are inadvertently agreeing here with the account of creation in the book of Genesis, that all of humanity originates from the same biological family. Therefore, we were all created. Though you are merely a speck on the back of a grain of sand when compared to the vast number of humans born and decomposed for millennia, you are as important to your species' survival as the greatest kings and queens. If every human on earth was suddenly exterminated at once, sparing only 2 beggars, they would each be owners of half a planet, and the only hopes left for humanity's future. If only all humans understood their importance in the grand scale of survival. If only all humans could see that barriers between belief or geography or skin are of no importance to the perpetuation of their species. If only all humans saw themselves as tiny but uniquely important pieces of our universal design. But by nature, the human is affected by instinct, emotion, and imbalance. A human will turn on one of its own species for reasons that will never matter in 1,000 years, and likely not matter in even 100 or 10. While you have seen the light in the distance and chosen to follow it, even if from mere curiosity, there are millions more whose backs are turned against its glow. Freedom is an idol of the human species. The Illuminati operates in defense of you and all humans, in all places and of all generations. Our duty to this planet has spanned across centuries and survived even the most established government entities. But the cultivation of trillions of human lives is a daunting responsibility, and while the human would not exist today without our protection, many uninformed masses mistake our guidance for a restriction of liberty. Every human desires to be free of oppression, free of hardship, free of poverty, free of hunger, free of rules and laws, but as you understand, the nature of your species leaves true freedom impossible. They speak of our species as if they're not part of our species. I find that quite interesting. Are you free to murder? Are you free to steal? Are others free to murder and steal from you? Or are there certain freedoms that must be given up for the benefits of all? Now, this is a very good point, because this is exactly why God has laws in the Bible. You know, freedom in that sense is a myth. Humanity has to live within the constraints of moral guidelines and laws. That is what the Bible teaches us. But what they're really implying here is that they are going to make up the rules for humanity. And I guarantee you that these rules are contradictory to those of the Bible, and that they will result in a lot of tears. Now, before we go further, I'm going to read a short extract from a book called The Freedom of Obedience by Martha Thatcher. And it deals with this concept of freedom and laws. And I found this very, very interesting. This lady was busy with a project and a book came across her desk. She said, "On the desk before me, my book was open to the article I was studying, Freedom versus Structure. Also before me, 2 stacks of index cards reminded me that I had a paper to write, an unlikely setting for the birth of a crisis. But when I was pondering the idea that if freedom is the absence of limitations, as I supposed, and read that it is, then structure is that which prevents freedom. Freedom and structure are therefore enemies. Implications abounded, but the most threatening was the dark thought that as I looked ahead to a structured life, a life in the process of conforming to God's ways, I would know little of freedom. My struggle came down to this: how could knowing and obeying God's truth set me free, as I had read in John 8 verse 32 that it would? Because, you know, it says that we will know the truth and the truth shall set us free. The question left me numb, and I stared out the window. From over the row of century-old pine trees, a jet drew its frothy white strip across my view, and with that image came a sudden awakening. The jet flew because it conformed to the laws of aerodynamics. Conformity to structure had given birth to the freedom of flight. For centuries, man had sought that freedom. He had made all manner of logical and outrageous devices to leave the ground and glide on the wind. But when did this dream actually become reality? Only when he understood and submitted to the God-made laws concerning flight. When he did it God's way, man was free to fly. Freedom and structure are not enemies, but inseparable companions in God's paradoxical truth. The article was expounding a lie, and I was vulnerable to the lie because I had no understanding of how obedience to God could mean freedom. So, in this sense, the Illuminati seems to be in agreement with even the Bible that man is not free to live as he pleases. Any claim that we make that we are free to live as we please, i.e. no rules, or as Aleister Crowley says, do as thou wilt is the whole of the law, i.e. lawlessness is what he's describing, implies chaos, because then we are free to murder, steal, plunder, wage warfare, do whatever we like, because that's what we feel like doing at the time. So that obviously cannot be the case. So even Satan knows this, and he will implement his tyrannical laws and rules and impose them on humanity. I came across a very interesting little story one day about a school teacher who was teaching children in a classroom, and they were complaining bitterly about the things that she was telling them to do. So she had a brainwave. She turned around and said to the class, "Listen, today you are going to be free to make the rules for what happens in this classroom." At first they looked at her in total disbelief, and when they realized that she wasn't joking, they immediately set to making up a whole long list of rules, and these rules just became increasingly harsh, restrictive, and they landed up with far more rules than what the teacher had ever imposed on them. Now, I find that extremely interesting. We see this happening today in world governments and in society at large, that human beings who, for example, reject God's 10 commandments have no difficulty in proliferating laws that are progressively restricting humanity and stripping people of their rights, their freedom of movement, freedom of religion, and so on, and imposing tyrannical laws on humanity. We'll carry on. For happiness, the human desires freedom. For prosperity, the human requires leadership. This is the reason behind our anonymity. To continue functioning throughout societal changes and generational differences, the Illuminati must remain behind the curtain, an outsider belonging to none and loyal to all. You may never understand how your life can be free while guided by our organization. You may never fully comprehend our purpose and why you are safest and happiest with us. Simply open your mind and release your apprehensions, and you will find the relief of truth. So they claim to have the truth. We will never take your hand and pull you down the path like a slave to our whims. This, of course, is exactly the opposite of what the Bible says is actually going to happen. You must find and travel the road on your own. But your quality of life is our greatest concern, and the reason we leave a map for you to follow if you desire. Our symbols permeate human society as subtle directions to the truth. Many of your brethren have noticed our symbology in artwork, architecture, and visual media. Such displays of loyalty are highly appreciated. However, our symbols are not placed in your world for our own glorification, but instead serve as gentle instructions for those who look up from the rocks of earth and choose to follow the light. Take note that they've spelled the light in capital letters, and that is because Lucifer is the light bearer in the occult realm. Perhaps it was one of these directions that brought you here, or maybe 100 of them scattered throughout your streets and buildings and glowing screens since your childhood. An invisible chain reaction of events in your life, paired with similar events in the lives of those around you, have all fallen in perfect place, like the toppling of countless lines of dominoes that meet in the center. While you pushed the dominoes, it was us who laid them in a line. I want to point out too, here is an admission that the media has been complicit in indoctrinating young children into the occult for many generations, when they refer to glowing screens since your childhood. Your life's journey has led you to this moment. Hope is in the distance. The age of war is coming to an end. Terrors that have plagued humanity for millennia will soon be obsolete and forgotten. Every year is a thread in a rich and glorious tapestry that is approaching its completion. Your ancestors lived through the darkness of night, but your descendants will live in the abundance of the new dawn. This book is your guide, the first testament of the coming age of Illuminatium. It is order amidst a world of chaos, a candle for all who travel the path as the night reaches its darkest point. It is a promise that even as you bear every hardship that slams against you like gusts of wind, fighting to turn you around, each step forward brings you closer to the joy of abundance. We invite you to discover more about our organization and to understand your role in this planetary union. Answers to many of your questions are contained in these pages. Our methods, our developing technologies, the sources of our wealth, the future of your world, and the root of our power. In creating this book, we hope to alleviate the concerns voiced by your people and provide insight into our plan for the human species. While our daily operations must remain confidential for your safety, we strive to create a better understanding between us and those we have been entrusted to protect. This book contains truth about your world. Before you read any further, you must understand with greatest severity that everything inside this book is either true or cannot be safely divulged at this time. Choosing whether or not to believe is your freedom. Some might ask, why should a global organization relinquish their hold upon their deepest secrets in such a public manner? Why risk turning a population against us when secrecy has served so well? Because our enemies will do nothing. The things you will read have been in effect for decades, but they were already being planned decades earlier than that. Anyone who reads this book as a means to subvert our authority will find this scheme to be futile. The components are so deeply established in your society, there is nothing anyone could do to change them, even if they tried. Not even the world's most powerful leaders can alter planetary law. Approach this book with a mind that is open for revelation. To truly comprehend what you are about to read, you must empty yourself of all preconceived ideas, clear your subconscious of every notion you might have about the world around you, and prepare to accept new ideas you might never have considered to be true. However, most who read this book will not. Most will dismiss it. Few will finish it, and many of those who do will discard it immediately after. In fact, we are so certain of our influence over your mind and the media we have bombarded it with since before your conception, that we haven't the slightest fear of you doing something about anything you read within its pages. There will always be a voice that tells you this is not real, no matter how quietly it may whisper. Our hold upon your subconscious will incline you to dismiss this as a hoax, something you needn't worry about for more than humor, something you needn't investigate further, something you can simply do nothing about and can abandon by the wayside of a path half journeyed. But even if you are skeptical, there will always be a part of you that will wonder if it is all true. There will always be a voice that whispers in your ear, press onward, the light is just ahead. Once your eyes are opened, you can never go back to the childlike safety of ignorance. Read on only if you accept this burden, but fear not for what is ahead. You are never alone. We are always watching out for you. Now this brings to mind something that the Bible says. God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. But you know, it's not just knowledge that counts, it's the correct knowledge. Only God has the complete understanding of all knowledge. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And by knowing the truth will set you free. So whatever is coming up in this book and what they claim to be truth, I can already tell you will not be the truth, because it is not connected to God in any way. It is connected to Lucifer. Therefore, we know that we're going to be reading lies and deception. But let's continue. The pyramid. Life's journey begins at the bottom, where many reside but few rise above. All levels are important. Without a foundation, the structure could not exist. As a person climbs the Great Pyramid, it becomes clear that they have always been one part of our universe's most intricate mechanism. Now, in the Illuminati and in Freemasonry, for example, where you have Masonic degrees, this is all about climbing the corporate or the elite ladders of society. And that in, for example, Freemasonry, as you get closer to the apex of the pyramid and the higher degrees of Freemasonry, you become privy to more and more occult information, or so-called enlightenment. For example, in Freemasonry, it's only at the higher degrees of Masonry that it is revealed who the God is that Masons worship, and that is Lucifer, the light bearer. This is easily verifiable by reading documents like Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. The light. The world is covered in a darkness of confusion, war, and hardship. Well, it's interesting that they make that point, because the Bible agrees. And it says that Satan is the author of confusion. He is the warmonger and the source of all evil. So we understand from a biblical viewpoint why that is in fact true. The light is an ever-present guidance, an unseen and unnamed higher power that compels those who follow it to strive for the betterment of the human species and rewards those who do. All who seek its glow act as mirrors, reflecting the light into the world's still darkened spaces. Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that the higher power that they speak of is not unnamed. Jehovah is his name, and Jesus Christ is his son. What they are hiding here is the power that they serve, which is Lucifer or Satan. And it's interesting to me that this fact is always hidden. It's always secret. All secret societies hide their so-called truth from humanity. And I want to ask the question, why is it necessary to hide what you claim to be truth? You know, God has freely given us his truth in the Bible. It's freely available to anybody. You don't have to belong to a society or a secret society to get it, or go through rituals to get the truth. It's freely available in God's Word. So why is this covered up, and why is it also secret? Why has it been secret for generations by their own confession in this website? Why do they refuse to reveal their identity to humanity as people who claim that they are working for the good of humanity? Now, these people are given a different terminology in movements such as the New Age. They are called world servers. They are supposedly leading the world into the new age of enlightenment or the light of Lucifer. They are serving the world a deeply occultic agenda where they are claiming even to be in contact with what they call ascended masters, who according to the Bible are demonic spirit beings and entities that are giving the New World Order guidance for the future for humanity. We will talk about this later on, and I'm going to refer you to my video on this very subject. The eye. The eye resides at the center of the light, its focus so fixed upon truth that it becomes a beacon for the glow. Those who follow the light are central to this planet's universal design, ever watchful and ever vigilant. The eye sees and knows all, just as a shepherd sees and knows all of the flock. This is the all-seeing eye that you'll see on the American $1 bill. It is the eye of Lucifer, the eye of enlightenment. It's very interesting that after 9/11, when they had this occultic ritual at Ground Zero, there was a formation in the shape of an eye. And this eye is used symbolically throughout the world, basically inferring that there is this being that is watching everything, and of course they know who the being is that they worship. The eternal. The Illuminati's duty to this planet has spanned across centuries and survived even the most established government entities. Though not praised in any history book, we have shaped every major movement on this planet and guided the human species throughout every threat of extinction. Though our human members may perish and fade into the annals of time, the Illuminati will continue to stand into eternity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, pay attention to this, because it is a fact that the occultic agenda for the earth, according to the Bible, is a very long-term plan. This strategy for world domination and subversion of truth started way back in the Garden of Eden, continued through Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, and continues today in governments of the world who are all Luciferian, who all worship Lucifer. There is not one Christian government in the world. I challenge you to put forward one Christian government in the world. Every government in the world is Luciferian and upholds the Luciferian doctrine that Lucifer or Satan is actually the true God. It's very hidden, it's very subversive. These governments will sometimes pay lip service to Christianity. They have this form of religion, but believe me that Lucifer or Luciferianism is upheld as the doctrine to which they subscribe. So we have a very long-term agenda, and we see this in the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel reveals that Satan's strategy is a long-term strategy to progressively diminish the truth of God and his word over a long period of time, and he does this through changing laws and customs and traditions over a very long extended period. The White Rim. In the Atlantic Ocean is an island that does not appear on any map and never will. It has no official name. Those who have visited it call it the Isle. Alright, so now we notice that we can't continue reading this book. There we go, you've got to order the book. I've clicked on this link which says begin reading, but it just covers the same ground that we've actually covered, and there's the advertisement again. These are archives on the website, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through this. Is there an Illuminati membership fee? The Illuminati has no need for money or donations of any kind and will never demand payment for membership. So we'll leave it at that. What are the Illuminati's religious beliefs? Members of the Illuminati are free to follow any religious faith they choose as long as such belief does not conflict with the preservation of the human species. For anyone to claim that the Illuminati is affiliated with a religious belief, be it God or Satan, Baphomet or Baal, undermines the very purpose of our independence from human divisions. We neither accept nor deny any deity and hold none to be higher than any other. How do I become a member of the Illuminati? Our organization separates individuals of outstanding political, financial, or cultural influence from the rest of the flock and establishes them as shepherds of the human species. We see and know all, just as a shepherd sees and knows all of the flock, our eyes peering over the masses to identify any threat to those we protect. Maybe you have met one of our members in the flesh, or perhaps not. Many of us have no public profile and value anonymity. Membership in the Illuminati is by invitation only. To join us, simply continue on the road you currently travel in life. In studying the words of the Testament, you have already set yourself apart from the millions who still linger in the dark. You have been led to the path and you have chosen to follow it by your own free will. New technological advancements have aided our council in identifying citizens to investigate for ranking membership. If you believe that you have been set apart from all other humans and that you are meant to become a shepherd of our species, you are invited to submit an application for our review at this website. This form will add you to our list of potential candidates for Illuminati membership, and you will be contacted if we require more information. Okay, so this is where you can submit your application for consideration to join the Illuminati. Does the Illuminati support gun control? While the Illuminati endeavors to develop a harmonious society where the need for guns is eradicated, our organization has no interest in disarming a population that requires weapons to defend itself against harm or demise. In a perfect world, there would be no need for guns. At this time, we do not live in a perfect world. Guns and gun control are not the root of the problem, but merely symptoms of the disease. Humanity is lost in the midst of this age of war, an age where one human will end the life of another member of its own species simply due to imbalance or emotion. Only the human is affected by this emotional disability that causes violence between those who are identical in biological mechanics but different in mental construct or physical appearance, skin color, religious belief, gender, sexual orientation, geography, wealth, beauty, and other differences that do not affect the grand history of humankind as a whole. No other creature of earth behaves in this way, slaughtering members of its own kind for reasons that matter nothing in 10, 100, or 1,000 years. It's interesting here that what the Bible attributes to the woes of the world and calls sin, which is like a virus that has infected humanity and corrupts us internally, they call emotional disability. Humans are affected by this emotional disability that causes violence. Very interesting. I'll continue. While the science behind these centuries of subconscious misalignment would take dedicated textbooks to explain, understand that the human is not violent by nature. It is trained this way, even if unintentionally, by parents mired in generations of misinformation and lack of education. Ancestors who breed descendants to share in their violent mental illness, which perpetuates entire generations who are convinced that their belief is right and all others are wrong, and any who disagree must suffer. My goodness. Well, this is clearly a reference, for example, to Christianity, or people that teach their children that Jesus is the way, or that the Bible is the absolute source of truth. These people are being branded here as being mentally ill. It is an illness that cannot be treated by medicine because it affects the human's core subconscious and has become entrenched in the species' genetic evolution. In other words, religion, they are saying, has become entrenched as an illness and is causing this mental illness in the species' genetic evolution. A framework for full eradication is not feasible at this time, but there is hope. We have seen great success in our experimental campaigns in parts of Europe and North America by exposing humans to subtle mental exercises embedded in popular media, movies, television, and similar broadcasts. We have seen great success in the reduction of violent tendencies and a marked increase in societal quality of life. These campaigns will soon expand to other continents where similar experiments are already underway. So they're talking here about mind control in the media and the dumbing down of society. A bevy of our public campaigns focus on this specific imbalance in the human subconscious. But these are dangerous times, and caution is needed to protect one's life, property, and the children and elderly of one's community. In this age of war, many places are not as safe as others. In the swiftly approaching age of Illuminatium, the extinction of war will also end the need for weapons. But for many citizens at this time, guns are an essential means of defense against those who have not yet seen the light. In such cases, the Illuminati has no interest in disarmament. Does the Illuminati require human or animal sacrifice? The Illuminati's purpose is the preservation of the human species. Therefore, human sacrifice or any practice that does not serve the betterment of mankind would counter everything we represent and are thus prohibited in all circumstances. While many have attributed such actions to our members, these connections are based only in rumor. For more information, read Illuminatum chapter 8, which we can't do because we don't have access to the book. But ladies and gentlemen, here again is great deception at work, because throughout history we have seen how world governments and dark forces behind world governments have murdered people in warfare. Abortion is responsible for the death and the human sacrifice of fetuses more than any wars combined have ever destroyed. We know, too, that behind the scenes in secret societies, satanic ritual abuse takes place. We know that human sacrifice takes place. These things are easy to uncover. They are very well hidden in some cases, but there are many people out there that have done research and have proven that this is in fact the case. Human sacrifice is practiced. War is a form of human sacrifice. Abortion is a form of human sacrifice. And this is linked to the dark occultic world. Why has the Illuminati decided to go public? Many citizens have asked why a global organization would relinquish their hold upon their deepest secrets in such a public manner. Why risk turning a population against us when secrecy has served so well? The age of Illuminatium approaches. The people of this planet are ready to accept the light, and our enemies will do nothing because they do not believe that we exist. The revelations in the Testament have been in effect for decades, but they were already being planned for decades earlier than that. Anyone who reads the testament of our tools as a means to subvert our authority will find these schemes to be futile. The components are so deeply established in modern society, there is nothing anyone can do to change them, even if they tried. Now, I do agree with this because this is a long-term strategy, and this is precisely the danger that society is facing in future, because the time is going to come, and it is coming soon, when things like, for example, the mark of the beast is going to be enforced on all of humanity, and that we will not be able to buy or sell anything or work to earn money if we do not worship this beast system. So yes, they are correct. This is a long-term strategy that has been at work for a very, very, very long time. The plan does move from generation to generation. Satan builds his own contingency plans into his master plan. Is the Illuminati affiliated with Freemasons? Although many members of the Illuminati are personally associated with Freemasonry, our organization is a separate and independent entity with no official partnership or affiliation. Members of the Illuminati are not required to maintain any relationship with Freemasonry. While some of the tenets of Freemasonry are similar to those of our organization, its beliefs have no official reflection on the Illuminati. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have some disinformation here. The Illuminati identified Freemasonry as the mechanism that they would use to spread their occult virus throughout the world. Because when the Illuminati were forced to go underground and were banned by various world governments, they decided to infiltrate Freemasonry, which already had an existing structure worldwide, and to spread their Luciferian doctrine through Masonry. So why would they do that? It's very simple. It's because they believe the same thing. Freemasons worship Lucifer. There are many people who will say to me, well, we are been into Freemasonry and we've never been told that Lucifer is the god that is worshipped in Freemasonry. And that is because by the admission of those in the high levels of Freemasonry, they purposely deceive those in the lower orders. It's only in the higher orders that it is revealed who this great architect actually is. Now, because of the irrefutable connection between the Illuminati and Freemasonry, it's time that we have a closer look at what Freemasonry really is all about. Earlier in this video, we read from the Illuminati website that they claim that they are not a religion, but they admit that they are involved with Freemasonry. They also admit that some of their principles are very similar to what Masonry teaches. So I'm going to work through one of my blogs that I did some time ago. And if you want to go and have a look at this video, just go and search for it on the internet, The Secret Doctrine of Freemasonry, or The Secrets of Freemasonry Revealed, and you'll find a 2-hour video that you can work through if you really want to. But this should suffice. I'm going to now read from my blog. In this video, you will see citations from Masonic writings that prove that Freemasonry is a religion, that it is not Christian, and that Masons become born again by saving themselves. Masonic candidates are led through what is called initiation. Initiation is in fact synonymous with New Age spiritual evolution. The process of initiation is nothing less than an initiation into the occult, teaching Masonic apprentices how to conjure up demons and engage with spirit beings from the dark side of the spirit world. The god of Masonry is Baphomet, or what is also known as the Goat of Mendes, or Lucifer the Lightbearer, or Satan. The Kabbalah is taught in Masonry. It is a form of Jewish mysticism that draws from what the Bible calls the mystery religions, or mystery Babylon. According to adherents of Kabbalah, its origins began with secrets that God revealed to Adam. When read by later generations of Kabbalists, the Torah's description of the creation in the book of Genesis reveals mysteries about the Godhead itself, the true nature of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of life, as well as the interaction of these supernatural entities with the serpent, which leads to disaster when they eat the forbidden fruit, as recorded in Genesis 3. It is in fact a pseudo-religion of pagan witchcraft. The goal of every Masonic apprentice is to attain the status of a god. Essentially, there is no difference between the false teachings of the New Age and Freemasonry. Both are equally evil and reject Jesus Christ as a unique deity, affirming that man is or can become God with a bit of help from mystery religion and occult secret teachings. Those in Masonry and the New Age have fallen for Satan's oldest trick in the book, the lie that there is not only one God, but men can also become gods if they have access to secret knowledge of the spirit world. This is found in Genesis 3. The revelations made in this video about the secret doctrine of Freemasonry show the following. Freemasonry is not a fraternal organization as claimed by Masons. It is a religion. The religion of Freemasonry is witchcraft. The god of Freemasonry is Satan or Lucifer, also known as the great architect of the universe. Freemasonry has a secret doctrine which is well documented in Masonic literature. The secret doctrine denies the unique deity of Jesus Christ. The secret doctrine has a false plan of salvation wherein each Mason earns his own salvation by attaining conscious union with the deceiving spirit. The secret doctrine teaches that each Mason can evolve into a Christ and a God. The secret doctrine of Masonry is therefore a false gospel and so condemned according to Galatians 1 verse 6 to 9, which says, I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel, which is really no gospel at all. Evidently, some people are throwing you into confusion and are trying to pervert the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach a gospel other than the one we preached to you, let them be under God's curse. As we've already said, so now I say again, if anybody is preaching to you a gospel other than what you accepted, let them be under God's curse. End of quote. We can see therefore that a man cannot accept both the gospel of Jesus Christ as documented in the Bible and the secret doctrine of Freemasonry at the same time. This means that the involvement of a Christian in Freemasonry would be inconsistent with the teachings of Jesus Christ, even if the Masonic apprentice were unaware of the existence or teachings of the secret doctrine. A true Christian cannot be involved in Masonry without becoming spiritually yoked with unbelievers. A so-called Christian Mason would not be considered to be one of the sons of God under the covenant found in 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14 to 18, which says, Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? What agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God has said, I will live with them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. Therefore, come out from them and be separate, says the Lord. Touch no unclean thing, and I will receive you. And I will be a father to you, and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. End of quote. So participation in the worship of the great architect of the universe through Masonic rituals is idolatry. Involvement of any Christian in idolatry or witchcraft places his or her salvation in question according to Galatians 5 verse 19 to 21, which says, The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity and debauchery, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambitions, dissensions, factions and envy, drunkenness, orgies and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. End of quote. Take note particularly in that passage of idolatry and witchcraft. It clearly states that anyone involved in idolatry and witchcraft will not inherit the kingdom of God. Therefore, a man cannot be a knowledgeable Christian and a knowledgeable Mason at the same time. A Christian congregation which is knowledgeable about Freemasonry also therefore cannot allow anyone in the fellowship to stay a Mason without that congregation deviating from the teachings of Jesus Christ and his apostles. We'll see this in Matthew 18 verse 15 to 17, 1 Corinthians 5 and 2 John. If as Christians we know the truth about Freemasonry and do nothing, then we fall into sin. Now, based on what we've worked through in this video, we can conclude that the Illuminati and its plans for a one-world government, religion, army and currency is evil by nature, and that it will ultimately enforce the worship of Lucifer on the earth. This is totally consistent with what the Bible teaches about the Antichrist's New World Order, one world government, and its false religion that will dominate the earth at the end of the age before Christ returns. The Bible warns that a time is coming when the man of peace, or rather the man of perdition, the Antichrist, who initially comes into world power as a man who stands for world peace, will wage war on humanity in general and Christians in particular. Those living on the earth during this time will be forced to accept the mark of the beast or die. Without the mark, one will not be able to work, buy, or sell anything. Satan will enforce his authority on the earth in this way, and those who do not willingly submit to worshipping him and his beast system of world government and false religion will pay the ultimate price. This strategy will be the most extreme form of tyranny and intimidation, and many will succumb to the power of the beast. Because of this, the earth is going to enter a time of great spiritual darkness and hardship. This period of history is referred to in the Bible as the Great Tribulation. This short but extremely intense period of time will be unlike anything ever witnessed throughout all of human history, and will be so terrible that God will have to cut it short to avoid the complete destruction of humanity. In short, Satan knows that his days are numbered, and he will unleash his venom against humanity, especially against Christians. This will be his final attempt to demand to be worshipped as God on the earth, and to destroy the followers of Jesus Christ who refuse to do so. What I'm speaking about is nothing new. All this information is in the Bible, and in the near future I hope to do a video about the mark of the beast which explains it all in greater detail. But the good news is that according to the Bible, Satan's days are numbered, and ultimately Satan and his demons will be bound eternally, never again to wreak havoc on the earth. Those who have accepted God's free gift of salvation through faith in Jesus Christ will spend eternity in the presence of God, and there will no longer be pain, suffering, death, hunger, and warfare. This is great news. But there is also a warning. According to the scriptures, those who accept the mark of the beast will be eternally damned. This is probably because these people have made a decision to side with Satan and his demons. Just as Satan convinced a third of the angels to rebel against God in heaven, so too he still continues to recruit for his damned kingdom of darkness. Now, in general terms, much of what we see happening in the world today is simply a manifestation of a spiritual battle between the forces of good and evil, God's kingdom of light and Satan's kingdom of darkness. Many people attribute the evil in this world to God, but the Bible explains that all of humanity is subject to the destructive influence of Satan's rebellion against God. The Bible warns that Satan is the father of lies, murder, deception, hatred, everything evil and perverse, and that his sole objective is to turn people against the only true God, Jehovah, and his Son, Jesus Christ. The Bible explains too the history of mankind, the nature of the spirit world, the destructive power of evil and sin, and the good news that although humanity is damned because of our rebellion against a loving God, God has made a way of escape for everyone who is willing to accept his free gift of salvation by faith in Jesus Christ. I want to encourage you to study the Bible and to read the books of Daniel and Revelation in particular, so that you can get a picture of what the future looks like on this earth. It's a pretty scary picture, but what is wonderful about this is that God in his wisdom has chosen to tell us what the future looks like, so that when these events begin to unfold upon the earth, we will know that there is a God, because he knows the future and has chosen to tell us in advance. This fact alone should serve as a warning to everyone that the future of this planet will be anything but peaceful. But this is also a great encouragement, because Jesus himself said that when we see these things come to pass, we should be glad and look up to the heavens, because our redemption is drawing very near. I hope this video has benefited you in some way, and if it has, please share it with others by sending them a link to the video on YouTube. Alternatively, you can purchase a copy of this video to show others. The video is available on DVD for worldwide distribution, and If you're interested in purchasing any of my DVDs in bulk so that you can share it with other people, I'll be happy to give you a good discount. If you are watching this video on YouTube, you will find important links to other resources of mine in the description section below. If you're not watching this video on YouTube and want more information on anything that I've mentioned in this presentation, please feel free to contact me by email. I'd love to hear from you, and I just want to thank you once again for taking the time to watch this presentation. And finally, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get automatic email notifications whenever I upload new videos. God bless and keep you.